Hello, friends and damn givers. I'm Nick Laparra, and welcome to the Let's Give a Damn podcast. I hope you're ready for a really great episode because this is a really fucking great episode. Let's go. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so incredibly glad you're here. Thank you for hitting play. Thank you for showing up this week. And most of all, thank you for joining me and us on this journey toward leaving the planet much better than we found it. Friends, it is Black History Month, and in classic American fashion, white people are still trying to distort what this country has done in the past to people of color and what this country is still doing to people of color today. For example, Ron DeSantis continues banning books about Black history, American history that is, because these books hurt his white feelings. And he is also banning history courses, Black history courses, in Florida colleges and universities. And if that's not enough, Ron DeSantis could very well become the next president of this exceptionally unexceptional country of ours. I say all that to say this. We don't learn. We don't learn. We haven't learned a goddamn thing, actually. And we, as Coleman Domingo says in the clip you're going to hear today, one of the clips anyway, that we have amnesia about our history. Therefore, celebrating Black History Month is more important than ever, and continuing to read and listen to Malcolm and Martin and Belle and Tony and Maya and James and Nicole and Zora and so many others is more important than ever before. Read those books, listen to those amazing humans. And during this Black History Month, here at the very beginning of it, or 1 week in anyway, I want to share with you some highlights from conversations that I have had with amazing Black leaders from all walks of life, authors, professors, preachers, actors, and so forth, over the past few years on this podcast. And this episode contains important snippets from my conversations with the following former guests and current damn givers. You're going to hear from Clint Smith from episode 27 from September 2017. You're going to hear episode 143 from June 2020 with Lisa Sharon Harper. You're going to hear a bit from episode 163 from September 2020 with Professor Eddie Glaude Jr. You're going to hear a bit from episode 169 from November 2020 with Chloe Valdery, an amazing conversation. You're also going to hear from my friend Coleman Domingo, episode 182 from February 2021. And the last clip you're going to hear is from episode 210 from October 2021 with my friend and amazing thinker, author, speaker, Joel Leon. So again, that's Clint Smith, Lisa Sharon Harper, Eddie Glaude Jr., Chloe Valdery, Coleman Domingo, and Joel Leon. These are amazing clips. And as I thought about who I wanted to highlight and which clips I wanted to share, I was reminded about how damn lucky I am to have these conversations with these amazing humans. And I hope you feel lucky that you get to hear these conversations and be alive at the same time as these wonderful humans. You get to watch them write and teach and speak and act and create in real time. It's truly, truly amazing. Before we get into this compilation episode of sorts, a quick reminder, as always, that you can email me anytime and for any reason at hello@letsgiveadamn.com. You can ask questions, recommend future guests, tell me how much you love or hate the show or me or whatever. Anything goes. I just love hearing from you. And now, let's get right into these snippets from these amazing conversations with these amazing humans during this amazing Black History Month. Let's go.
In this sort of movement for Black lives in the last several years, there's been this nomenclature of like stay woke, right? Everybody stay woke, suggestive of this notion that people have reached a certain level of critical consciousness that allows them to see the world for what it is and not what has been sort of espoused and propagated around issues of race, gender, sexual orientation, and the sort of larger systemic and institutional issues in the world. And I think it's catchy, and I think it's great. I also think it is not as helpful in outlining the way in which that process actually takes place. Because I think if it were more honest, it would be called like stay waking up. It would be this sort of like, it would suggest that it is an ongoing process.
Yeah,
it would suggest that it is, it demands proactivity, right? Because every day you have to wake up and say, even though, so for me as a straight man, I can wake up and it is very easy for me to be complicit or not push back against systems of patriarchy, systems of homophobia. And if I'm not purposeful, if I'm not proactive, if I'm not constantly thinking about who I am and if the things that I'm seeing in the world are aligned or not aligned with my values in accordance with those issues, then it can be like very easy for me to sort of just, oppression is kind of like this lazy, like at the water parks, they have those lazy rivers, right? Yeah. Oppression is like the kind of lazy river. You can just sit on your tube and you're not doing anything, but you are still benefiting from the current that it moves. But like to say I'm going to step up and actually walk against this current is something that demands a sort of active mentality. So all that's to say, it is essential that we recognize that there are, especially people who are not part of marginalized groups of different identities, that it is essential that we recognize that how important it is to stand up against issues that do not directly affect us, and at the same time recognizing that is a hard thing, that it is not an easy thing to do. And I think we can hold both of those things at once. And so that poem and that TED Talk is trying to wrestle with that sort of strange duality. And also just, something that's not addressed in the TED Talk, but I think is important, is that silence. This is talking about what it means to be silent in the face of oppression, in the face of injustice. But there are also moments where silence is actually okay, right? And I think that, again, this is something you see on social media and things like that, that there's a fine line between feeling like you need to say something about everything and then saying something that you're informed about, right? And and it's a blurry line, because you don't want to say that like you have to have taken a critical race theory class to speak up about racism. I don't think that is what we want to suggest. But at the same way that, like, I'm not going to necessarily espouse like the way that I think we can defeat ISIS in Syria. Right. Even though I have thoughts and opinions on it, I am not an expert in that space. And so to share ideas as if I were can be tricky and can be dangerous. But at the same time, you don't want to create a precedent where people feel that they can't share their ideas on things they're not necessarily experts in. So I think it just demands a level of thoughtfulness that we all have to continuously carry. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I think there's a lot of, at least what I've encountered, and tell me if you have or not, with people, there's a level of, a lot of it comes down to laziness. Not proactive or like, oh, I want to be lazy in this area, but it takes a lot of work to become informed. It takes a lot of work to stay waking up. Right. I really, really like that, because you're absolutely correct. The stay woke, it's a fine thing, and I like it. I like it a lot. But it implies that I am awake, and that's just going to continue whether I work at it or not. Right. It implies that there's a threshold that you have now crossed. Right. And that the work after and it's not that way. It takes reading books and engaging with people and watching lectures and giving lectures and writing books and just really engaging it, because these are complex issues that there is no one right answer for any of these things.
I don't have any tears left. I'm kind of done with the tears. I barely have any rage left. I'm not enraged. I'm in a cussing mood. So I think I've cussed more than I have in a while this last week. But it's more, I feel literally, utterly determined. Like utterly determined, and take no shit. Yeah. Take none. Throw it right back at you. If you throw it, don't you throw me no shit. Yeah. Because you throw me some shit, you're going to get some on your face. Yeah. Because it's clear to me what is the shit, and what is not. And I will let you know if you're throwing shit.
Yeah.
And so because I don't have a second to waste on your shit. Not you.
No, maybe I'll give you some shit that you don't want to take. No, I get your point. I do get your point. Yeah,
I don't have a second to waste because people are dying.
Yeah.
Because my people are dying. Because my dad, because my brother, because my brother-in-law, because both my brother-in-laws, because my nephew, any one of them, because my mom, because my sister, because I could be the next person. I could be the next Breonna Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't doing anything wrong. She was in her freaking bed.
Yep.
She was in her bed.
And I think that's the frustrating thing, right? Is that, I posted a photo, or I saw and posted a photo a little while ago of this older woman, 1965, Selma, Alabama, holding up a sign that said, "Stop police killings."
Yeah, right.
That was 55 years ago.
Yes.
Not a damn thing has changed. Like literally nothing. Nothing has changed in 55 years. I've seen some people posting online, we've seen a lot of things posted online, but they presented something and I didn't really have a pushback for it. In fact, I was like, they were like, let's abolish the police force and start over. Like,
well, that's me. I said that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I saw yours or not, but this is not working. And I have great friends that are police officers, and I've had lots of engagements with them, and they are having conversations within their team and to their sergeants and their captains and their chiefs and their like saying that, like, just so we're clear, that was not okay. The dude needs to go away for murder, right? So I know there are good ones in there. I know it. I know a lot of them personally. The system as a whole needs to go.
Listen, what I said yesterday is what I'll repeat here for your audience, that when you plant a tree, a fruit tree, and that tree bears fruit, it's not enough to take the bad apples off the tree, right? It's not enough. You have to understand, what kind of tree is this? Now, I know it just mixed metaphors, but
sure.
If you have to understand, you're getting this fruit, and if that fruit is consistently coming from this tree, it means the problem is not the fruit, it's the tree.
Yeah.
It's the tree. You got to ask, what's the seed? What is the seed of this tree? And what was the intent when it was planted? Because the thing is, it's too consistent. It's too consistent to be a bad apple. It's too consistent to be not intentional. Right? So when you go back, and I'll share with you the history of the police department. I mean, when you go back to how the police happened, what's the seed? The seed was slave patrols. That was the seed that planted the police in the United States of America. There were no police for hundreds of years here until slave patrols. And slave patrols weren't even technically the police. They were slave patrols. They had, you know what? They wore a star. They wore a star that is an exact shape as the sheriff's badge now.
Wow.
And it said slave patrol. And after the end of the Civil War, when the Civil War ended, that star got transformed into the sheriff's badge. Do you hear me?
I do.
So what is the slave patrol? A slave patrol was basically a bunch of people who banded together after thousands. There were thousands of revolts by people who were enslaved throughout the South. Thousands, not only Denmark Vesey and the Cato Rebellion and other rebellions that happened in South Carolina and others, but literally thousands of revolts, especially after the end of the Atlantic slave trade in 1808, when at that time it also coincided with the rise of King Cotton in the South and the invention of the cotton gin, which did not cause the need for less enslaved people, but actually caused the need for more, because they were producing more cotton. And so they needed more enslaved people to pick that cotton and to begin to, pick it apart and all that. So you start having breeding farms. Let's be real, y'all.
Say
Throughout
it.
all of Virginia became the main place where they had farms. They literally created plantations that existed to breed people. Sit in that for 1 second. And it wasn't just Virginia, it was all of the states. But Virginia was the main provider of human beings that they had bred to the whole South. So when you have breeding farms that are breeding people to be sold into the deep South, and in that deep South, they are then whooped silly if they try to escape, which every human being tries to escape, a lack of freedom. You're going to have rebellions. And that's what happened. You had thousands of rebellions, or at least 1,000 rebellions that happened across the whole South between 1808 and 1850, 1860, when the Civil War started. So that's why the slave patrols started, because they were afraid of Black people killing them in the middle of the night or leaving, stealing their, quote, property from them by escaping. So after the Civil War, when there are no more, in quote, slaves, and it was for 9 years, it was actually okay. You know, we had the National Guard down in the South, and they were keeping the peace. But then there was a big compromise that was made. The Harding Compromise that was made in 1877, 1878, and it basically the Democrats, the North, just said, okay, we will pull the troops out. Actually, it wasn't the Democrats; it was the Republicans. We will pull the troops out of the South, and you can deal with your race thing in your way, in exchange for you cooperating with us as in the Union. And they did that, and that's when Jim Crow happened. That's when that's what started the flood of more than 4,000. Some now estimate up to 5,000, or even up to a little beyond 5,000 people dying within the next 90 years. Not even 90. I'm sorry, I keep doing that. But from 1777 to 1950, so it was like 80 years or so.
Yeah.
So you have this period where now with Jim Crow, where the police, the slave patrol, the same people who were the slave patrols, now they have a badge on their chest, a place on their chest, in order to what? To keep those Black people in check, to make sure they work for us for near free, to work to make sure, and also to round them up off the streets and put them back into now new prisons. And those prisons, which did not exist before the Civil War, but now exist, they exist in order to take advantage of the 13th Amendment, which gives you the ability to enslave a person in the United States under one condition, that they are imprisoned. Oh, now we need to build prisons. And now we're going to round them. We're going to lower the bar of criminality. We're going to sweep them up. We're going to put them on the plantations. And that's the job of the sheriff. That's the job of the slave patrol. That's the job of the new police. So now we have Jim Crow, and that goes all the way through the 60s. Really, well, all the way through the Civil Rights Act when it's ended. And now you have from there about a 10-year period where we were somewhat free, trying to figure out what this freedom looks like, and then you get mass incarceration, right? So now you have, again, they lower the bar of criminality, this time focused on drugs. And the police are doing the same thing. They're patrolling the streets, not to enforce the law, but to enforce white supremacy, to enforce white flourishing.
What happens next? We have a very we're maybe more polarized than ever before. We have a president in an administration that is trying to whitewash. They're trying to stay in the Neverland, right? That we just described, right? In the book, we have to allow this innocent idea of America to die. It is irredeemable, but that does not mean we are too, right? We have They don't want to grow up and they don't want to face. We have President Trump who's trying to get money right now to fund this bullshit propaganda he's calling the right version of history, right? Because we're, apparently this, 1619 project and all these other things are they're all lies, right? We're just trying to make white people look bad. And it's like, no, it has nothing to do. It has nothing to do necessarily with white people, like, period. It has everything to do with white people have done a lot of fucked up things that they've never come to terms with. Hundreds of millions of Americans want to say, well, I never owned slaves. I never got that argument, because that doesn't work in any other part of our lives. That doesn't work to push off responsibility because I wasn't the one to do it. And here we are as a country saying, well, I'm not, like, reparations out of the question, abolishing the police out of the question. We've got to just make what we have better, instead of really recognizing that we have to like really truly crash and burn, like really, I mean, just unravel so that we can start at, and here's the problem. So that's what I believe needs to happen, but I don't think we can. That's the problem. We are one of my very conservative friends. I've mentioned this a few times and I'll keep mentioning it because I think it's such an easy thought, but I never thought about it before. He said, America is too big. It's too big. It's 350 million people. Can you get that many people to come to terms with where we've come from, who we are currently, and we have to change everything? Like, can that happen? You look at the happiest places on earth. You look at the happiest countries. First of all, they're being led by women, not megalomaniacal white men. They are being led by women. They're being led by progressive men. And they're also a lot smaller, right? 5, 10, 15, 20 million. Kind of Germany's on the bigger side of put together countries that are trying to do things right. Our country is so big. Do you agree with that? Or does that make sense? Or do you think that a country this size could make the changes necessary?
This is the richest country in the history of the world. So it has the means, it just doesn't have the will.
There you go.
Right? I mean, if you have a society that's predicated upon an economic philosophy of extraction that presumes that certain folk are disposable, then you're going to see what and who they value and how they budget. So, and then they're going to convince us and tell us the lie that they're limited resources. We can't do all the things that folks want us to do. That's not true. It's just a lie. And so I think at the end of the day, it's not about to me, like, it's not necessarily about our size. It's about our will. It's about what these people are willing to do and why they're not willing to do it. Many are it's abject greed. And it's a profound investment in the idea that this country must remain a white nation in the vein of old Europe. And when those two things, Donald Trump sits in the sweet spot of those two things.
Sure. Exactly.
Of greed and racism. That's where he rests, right there. And he exploits it for his end. You asked me in the last few minutes where we are, to just kind of say, well, buckle up, Doc. Nothing about November is going to resolve anything.
No. Yeah, exactly.
Buckle up. We're in the eye of the storm. The tail is coming.
Yeah.
I grew up on the coast. The tail is coming, and it might turn back around on us, given the way climate change has changed how these storms work. So part of what I do know is this: in every moment in which the country has had an opportunity for it to be otherwise, white supremacy is the umbilical cord wrapped around the baby's neck, and it chokes the life out of it. Every single time. We got to be better midwives. We can't tinker around the edges. We know the place is broken. It is clear it's broken. It's broken economically. It's broken politically. We're broken socially. The very fabric of the country has shredded. It's coming apart at the seams. And it seems to me that we're in this moment right now where we have to dream big dreams, or to put it in a different language, we have to take Coltrane's giant steps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Make somebody go, wait, what did he just play? We have to do something at the level of the social that is that remarkable. The question is, do we have the will? I'm a firm believer in Baldwin, in this sense, of how Baldwin put it. The only way we can even dare to build a new Jerusalem is that we have to give up on the idea of trying to convince some of these folk to believe otherwise, and instead invest our energy in building a world where those noxious views have no quarter to breathe. I'm tired of trying to compromise. I'm tired of trying to convince. I want you and me and others of like mind and spirit to do everything we can, to risk everything we can in trying to build a world where no matter the color of your skin, no matter your zip code, no matter who you love, no matter your gender, no matter your physical ability, that not only can you dream dreams, you can make those dreams a reality, man. And it seems to me that requires that we dream of a way of creating selves that don't need enemies, to echo Jimmy. And we'll see what happens from there, you know?
If someone is involved in the current heated rhetoric and they're contributing to the problem instead of being an exception to the problem,
right?
You can't start by rearranging your brain and your mind and your heart and your soul to do everything love and compassion if you're still seeing people as political abstractions.
Exactly.
So this is obviously a progression. How does one, as they're going through these points and as they're reorienting their lives, their rhetoric, their speech, their thoughts around these three things, what are some practical ways that someone can begin to root everything they do in love and compassion?
Well, the truth is that the third principle is basically the culmination of the first two, and the practice of the first two principles ends up being a practice in rooting everything you do in love and compassion. So
if you do 1 and 2,
you are doing 3.
Number 3 is going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So practically, I think, again, it starts with probing yourself. Self-love is a critical piece of this. We are hard on ourselves often as human beings, don't give ourselves space for making mistakes or for, not always having, a good day, for example. And so it's important to cultivate an attitude of love first for yourself, and being able to give yourself the space to, like I said, make mistakes. But also another way to cultivate self-love, I think, is, and I highly recommend that people do this, I started doing this year, is to develop some kind of meditation practice. And the reason for that is very simple. From a biological perspective, our brains are one of the most probably sophisticated organs that exists on planet Earth. It's made up of a limbic system, which is super, super, super old. Also known as the reptilian system. It's responsible for our fast thinking, either or forms of thinking. It helped us survive when we were evolving in the jungles. It helps us make quick decisions. So we have that limbic system, but we also have the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for slowing things down, executive functioning, thinking things through. It's far younger than the limbic system. But because we live in the 21st century, or although we live in the 21st century, we haven't necessarily updated our software system in our heads to slow down. And oftentimes we deploy the limbic system in situations where it doesn't need to be deployed. Not everything is a threat of such epic proportions to who we are and our fundamental existence. So one of the things that helps us slow down and recognize the negative stories that sometimes play over and over again in our head that are part of why we develop insecurity so strongly, a way to slow that down is to start meditating. Because when you meditate, you can just begin to notice the stories that you're telling yourself. You begin to bear witness, and then you begin to develop the capacity to say, oh, that's just a story. I can change it to another story, right? So I think that's a huge component of this, because it also helps you to practice that self-love and give yourself the space. And not only that, once you start recognizing that within yourself, when you interact with people, whether online or in the real world, you can begin, I think, to notice that sometimes, or actually, quite frankly, many times, oftentimes, human beings project from whatever story is going on in their head onto you. And so you can begin to recognize that. And instead of responding to the story that they're projecting, you can ignore that and respond directly to the human being. So a person can be really, let's say, I actually had a conversation with someone a couple weeks ago who was like going on and on, complaining about the political landscape. I just met this person for the first time, and they were clearly stressed out, right?
Yeah.
And just going on and on about the news media and all of this. And I was like, how much news do you consume on a regular basis? And he said, way too much. And I said, yes, I can tell.
Yeah.
Like I immediately knew everything that he was saying, all the rhetoric he was saying was really a facade for something else that was going on underneath the layers of all of that. And so I needed to speak to that person as opposed to the story that he was projecting. And that's a real clarifying process, a liberating process, to be able to recognize that, again, both within yourself and within your neighbor. So that are two practical ways, I would say, to practice self-love. And then you can try to do that with others as well.
This is so fucking good. I love that you started with that one of the main ways that you see number 3 sort of lived out is this self-love. I've always been super bad at that.
We all are, myself included. Yes.
I grew up the second oldest of 12 kids. My older brother, who's wonderful, when we were teenagers, trying to help mom and dad with all the kids, like he made a bunch of terrible decisions, and I assumed that role because of my personality. I had no problem assuming that role of like the older child, but I had that thrust upon me, and so I've always been. Like my MO, my immediate response is to always take care of other people. And I have exhausted myself to the point of burnout many times in my life, just taking care of people and not taking care of myself. And so it's awesome how these are like what you're doing with Theory of Enchantment is pretty close to what I've been sort of preaching with Let's Give a Damn. And that is there's three steps for giving a damn. Number 1 is you've got to give a damn about yourself first. So many of us here give a damn and they're like, oh, got to go out there and save the world. Well, first of all, you can't save the fucking world.
Right.
So stop, never, like literally give that up right now. That you can't do that. But you've got to start with giving a damn about yourself. And that is that self-care, that self-love. Do that hard work first. Do that homework. Do that really, really hard work for some of us that have been hurt in so many different ways. Then number 2 is give a damn about each other. And that is, those are the people that are around you. Those are your family, your friends, your partner, your spouse, your kids, whatever it is. The people that you're going to pour into them, they're going to pour into you all the time, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Make sure that group is healthy. Yeah. Because you're going to need it as you go to step 3, which is then give a damn about others. That's when these bigger projects that you're going to take on, whether it's your main occupation or it's something you do on the side, before you can give a damn about the world, you've got to do those other 2 steps, or else you're going to do it in an unhealthy way. You're going to hurt more people than you help, and you're not going to get much done, frankly, because you can't go straight to number 3, fix everything without doing that homework first. So I love that. If you do 1 and 2, you're gonna automatically already be living out, rooting everything in love and compassion.
Yeah, because if you practice the art of self-refinement, then the way you move about in the world will change.
I think right now we're still in a place where we're trying to dismantle systemic racism. I think this is the long game. Because people think they've been putting Band-Aids on it and think they put out their anti-racist statement and think they're done. No, we're going to keep going. And I feel like everybody's got to not be tired of it. You know what I mean? It's like, don't be so quick to just get back on social media and put a cute picture of you looking cute. I think we got to stay the course. I mean, you need some of those too. You need some light and some fun. But I'm like, yo, you got to remember, we got to stay in this. This is the long haul. because otherwise I know already. I can tell just in some conversations that I've had with people, whether it's producers and all, they're slipping right back into the old thought.
100%.
They truly are. And I'm like, oh, so you're not learning anything? You didn't learn from this moment? But you want to go to the comfort space and you're just going to go with old. And this is how we get caught up in it as well. Americans have amnesia because we don't want to deal with the pain and the stain of America. Truly, that's exactly what it is. We don't have monuments like Germany where it says never again. We should have. I remember when I would go around, I went to Petersburg, Virginia, where my parents were living, and I saw a place where they sold slaves, and I heard it was a nightclub. I was like, a nightclub? So is there, and there was no signs, no memorial or anything like that. I was like, well, so we're just going to forget? We're just going to be like partying it up? Like that doesn't make sense to me at all. But we just have a lot of work to do. And I think Americans we're still such a young country. We just want to party and have a good time and enjoy our lives. And that's part of it. We should do that. And be hopeful, but we should also understand the work that we need to do and the work that we need to do every day. And I think, my white counterparts realize that the work has to be done every day because Black people are doing it every day.
Right.
I have worked on it every day.
Yep.
Why? Just showing up.
Yep.
So that means you have to show up different too,
You wrote this article last, I think it was June, on Deadline about George Floyd and Nat King Cole and the deep legacy that connects them both. I'd love for you to talk about that piece for a little bit, because this is, one of my questions was going to be, how are you feeling in those days after that? Like, as a Black man living in America, how are you feeling that? And I think some of that comes through in this article, right? You drawing these parallels and these connections. I want to read one paragraph, and then I want to turn it over to you to just share how you were, about this article as well, because I'm going to link to it in the show notes. I want everybody to go read it. But you wrote in there, it isn't easy to live in this brown body. I am talking to all my friends and colleagues to say, yes, this is a problem. It has always been here. I have never had the privilege to think otherwise. This world has repeatedly shown me. You might think that when one is a public person that it cancels out my fear. My Black friends know better. Everyone is overdue to stand up for what is right. Use your voices to say loudly that Black lives matter. No one who loves me can sit this one out. The price will be heavy for our future if we do. To my cast, crews, producers, production companies, etc., you can't look away anymore. I won't let you. So I think that's a little bit of what you're feeling, in those days after. But tell us about that article, the response to it, maybe online, what people were saying in return. Hopefully, I hope that it was mostly positive and affirming. But yeah, how were you in those days after the public lynching of George Floyd, and kind of blend in some of this article as well?
Well, I was not only particularly rattled by the George Floyd moment, but also of what is her name? That woman in Central
Breonna
Park?
Taylor. Oh no. Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes. God, what was
I
her
can't
name?
even think of her name anymore. I don't know what.
That was harassing the bird watcher.
Exactly.
My brain is fried too. I can't remember his name either.
So I was particularly rattled by that, even more so. I understood that my brain could understand what going on with George Floyd because it's been happening over and over again. But that moment really took me out because I thought, I know these women. I know these women and men who on a good day, you know they have Black friends. You know that they're the good people. We probably vote the same way, you name it. But there was something in her in that moment that called on something in the system that she understood her place in it. And in that moment, she called on it, which could have been the death of this man because she wasn't getting her way. Or in some way. And that's the thing that really laid me out. I really felt like for a couple of nights I couldn't sleep and I was so upset about it. And I talked to my white girlfriends about it and stuff like that. And we would just have to really unpack this stuff. And I just thought, man, this is she didn't even know that she had this problem. And I didn't feel sorry for her, but I was like, God damn, you could have killed this man.
Yeah.
Because you knew the system, you knew your power as a white woman in this country, and that hurt even more. And so I was called on to, I think I wrote something, or I started writing something. I think I wrote it and just, I don't know. I don't even know how it came about, but my publicist somehow got it to deadline. And it was something I wanted to write for the industry as well, because I thought all this silence, there was still so much silence and people feel like I don't know what to do. Well, neither do I, but you got to do something. You know what I mean? And you got to say something. And I thought that there was a lot of people being silent, whether it was on social media, they're protecting their money, they're protecting their institution or whatever. And I said, I'm not having it. I'm not having it at all. Yeah. If you expect me to show up with as much kindness and love and support that I always do, and that I'm very conscious of, but I feel like I can't meet you in the eye anymore because I know that you're not team me. I'm team you, but you're also team you. You know what I mean? So I thought that this was something I had to write and call out my colleagues. And it was met with so much support by everyone in the industry, from executives, producers, transportation people, everyone. They were passing it around all over, which was great. It's funny. It just made me think I should probably put that out again, because I'm like, people forget, because you almost have to like, hey, I want you to think about it one more time.
That American amnesia. Exactly. We forget.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, it's like, hey, remember this? I want you to keep doing it. I want you to stay in it with me. So I wrote that from a place because I knew that, like, I had a musical that I wrote about Nat King Cole a few years ago. Right. And I deconstructed Nat King Cole because I thought there's nobody who can walk around with that much grace. You can't take the high road. You can't go high all the time.
Right.
You know, I was like, there's got to be some rage in there. There's got to be some fire in that fuel that keeps you going and doing your thing. Because I'm like, I know as an artist in this industry, every day is a choice. I have a choice to either burn it all down, or I have a choice to approach it with grace and understanding. I have that choice, truly, because there's I have a lot of rage. I do. But I think the way I make it useful is with grace and understanding and love and care and pouring more into that. But I wanted to examine, like, Nat King Cole. Nat King Cole has some Malcolm X in him. Of course he does. Of course he does. Well, of course. Yeah. I was like, don't think of him just being, I was have to look just to compare them. I'm like, no, we're all alike because we're Black men in this country. And so we have all of the same thing. We're just making choices on how to maneuver through, manipulate, work the system, make it work out for us at the end of the day, so we can have what we need for our families and to take care of our what we need to. So I think that, that wasn't just an examination of, like, what I see as an artist in this industry. And I wanted it to be out there in the world and for people to make a choice and to let them know, you being silent does nothing for me. And if you say that you are my friend, my colleague, you love me, oh, Coleman, we love you, shaking hands, and oh, Coleman, don't give me that bullshit. Mm-hmm. I want you to really stand by it, and you got to put your ass on the line, because I know that I put my ass on the line every day. I'm always the one that speaks up. Yeah. And at times that, that's a lonely space. Sometimes you're like, does anybody else not want to speak up for what's right for not only me, but for you as well? Or do we just want to sit idly by and just deal with, not say anything because we're afraid of losing what little that we have? I'm not interested in that. Maybe it's also because I'm older too. I'm 51 years old. I start to give less fucks.
You have a way, for lack of a better term, you have a way with words, both
Thank you, man.
spoken and written. Yeah. And as I was thinking about our conversation, I was thinking about this Bible verse that is very well known, Proverbs 18:21. Words kill, words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose. That's the Message translation, which I like. It's just very practical, right? Yeah. But they kill or they give life. And there's a lot of killing words being put into the internet and out into the world. So much so, I'm not going to pin it on a Donald Trump or somebody like that. Mm-hmm. But in the past 5 years, lots of people have risen like that have given people permission to be dicks. just keyboard warriors. How can I be the most hurtful, the most harmful on the internet? And then there are certain people, I think like yourself, that are saying, we have a choice here. I'm sure, I don't know, maybe not. I'm sure you feel sometimes like just blurting out the poison, as it says, not the fruit, the poison. Because it's easy to. There's so much shit going on, man. There's so much like hard stuff. And we live in the wealthiest city in the world. But also, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening here. Police brutality. You've got, people that are experiencing homelessness. It's running rampant. Kids that are experiencing homelessness. You have so much going on. And so let's talk about your words. Let's talk about your words. Sure. Our Lord and Savior, Lin-Manuel Miranda, said that your words, Joel's words, are where I go when I need inspiration, and he never lets me down. I feel that way. I'm not Lin, but I feel that way. So talk about the importance of words, written and spoken. Talk about why you are trying to be, it seems you're trying to be very careful about what you put out into the world. Maybe it is a deep understanding, whether it's from Proverbs or not, but of that idea of words kill or they give life. One of the two. It's your choice. The Bible also talks about the tongue as like a fire. It can burn. It can destroy things, right? Or it gives life. It can change a person's life.
Absolutely.
Talk about words.
I mean, first of all, again, thank you, Nick, for all of that. I think, where do I start?
That was a lot. I just went for like 5 minutes.
No, that was wonderful. I think, my love language is words of affirmation. And so, when you're talking about coming from like a wounded place or a place where you're not working through your trauma, as a person who's been through trauma, who saw how words affected me and either gave me life or, made me bleed, I think at a certain point in time, especially with my affinity for words, I just love words. I've always loved words. I wish I could tell you why. I mean, I think part of it is like my mom had been putting books in my hand since I was like 4. And so like I had a very voracious appetite. Comic books, newspapers, it didn't matter. Like I just wanted to read the dictionary, encyclopedias, like whatever had reading. Words.
That's our kids too. I love it. It's my favorite thing.
It's such a breeding ground for autonomy, for agency, because now I don't have a college degree, I have 2 years of college and a high school diploma, and I have like rap albums, and I have like Sonia Sanchez and Nikki Giovanni. Like these people are my teachers. Jay-Z, like these are my teachers when it comes to the written word and utilizing language in a way. And I could see how powerful it was. Like when I love documentaries. So anytime there's a hip hop documentary, I'm instantly engaged. Like, and really a music documentary. Like we're watching 1971 on Apple TV now. Essentially, it's about the year of music that changed everything. And it's Carole King's Tapestry comes out. Sly and the Family Stones. There's a riot going on. The Rolling Stones moved to the U.S. There's so much
huge year.
Bowie finally kind of becomes Bowie, right? And it's like there's so many things happening, and but anyway, so I'm thinking about there's this, I forget which documentary I was watching, but it's watching Run DMC on stage and how they command the stage, and specifically Run and also DMC, and the power of not just their performance but of their words. Like my Adidas changed how people wore sneakers. And granted, they were just emulating what was already happening in Queens. Like, I'm saying, like tongue out, laces out. It was like they put that out to the world. And so now the world is seeing this, I don't know. There's something about the power of words. For me, I say this often, like you can tell me you love me and that'll be enough. Cause like words of affirmation, like that's what it means that much to me. And so knowing that, I feel like it's my duty to remind people the importance of words and like how words have so much power to them and how we sometimes are very careless with our words. Like I'll give you an example. So I posted something yesterday, and the tweet was Mercury is in ginger ale. Thought it was funny. It was cute.
I saw it.
Yeah, I posted it on Instagram. There was a background of a tarot card. The tarot card is actually a picture of the RZA, right? The RZA, for those who are listening, the RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan. And I tagged the company because I was trying to find the right image. I finally found it on Pinterest, saved it, figured out how to post it because like whatever, and then I tagged the person. And I got a comment in the post a while after, like, can you please enter me in the caption since you edited my picture without my permission? And my immediate thought, Nick, well, not my immediate, but once I went to the page and saw that it was a white man who had taken an image of the RZA and made a tarot card out of it and was selling it, my immediate thought was like, bro, you are a white man who is stealing black art and selling it,
colonized for profit is what you kind
like
of
what
did.
and like
and now you want credit for
like
it.
Bro, please relax. That was my thought. I didn't do that. What I did instead was I still tagged him. He's still in the caption. I just deleted the comment and kept it moving. It's the intent, and like, because I don't want to feed into. I can recognize my anger and not feed into it. And I think that's the thing.
good.
You know, it's like I can be with it. I can see it. Cause like Nick, it was like 2:00 in the morning, bro. And I was like, oh, man, I want to eviscerate.
I have a sermon for you, sir.
Yeah. And like I knew what would also happen is that if I left the comment up, somebody probably was going to respond to it. And I was like, I don't want someone to have to do that labor, especially a black woman. And then if I comment on that, other people are going to comment on this person and like get on them about it. And maybe they should. I don't know. Again, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like I have the authority. Like I don't have some kind of chemical imbalance that's keeping me from being cognizant of that. Like, so I don't have bipolar disorder. I don't have depressive disorder, or anything that's like gonna keep me from being able to properly reconcile and use discernment of like, do I need to show up in this way? And what is this solving? Is this my ego or is this actually doing something? You know, and a lot of what we do, and myself included, like I'm very aware of it. It's a circle jerk. It can easily become an intellectual circle jerk or an emotional circle jerk because the people who need it, especially in like leftist circles and activist circles, the people who need it are not online. They're not the ones who are reading articles about toxic masculinity and patriarchy. They're on my blog. Like they don't care about that shit. They're not reading the latest essay in the New York Times. They're not discrediting them. Like they might be. I doubt that immensely because I've been living in the hood long enough to know like cats are trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B. They're trying to survive. Like they're not interested in having conversations about abortion rights in Texas. You know what I'm saying? And like I wish they would and they should. But having to be very clear about who am I communicating this to and why, like what's the purpose, and me knowing that it's for me. Like when I tweet things, it's because it's a thing that I've been thinking about. Like I tweeted about community recently and I posted it on Instagram because I know how much I need community and I want community, which is why we're doing this in person. Like there's something very intentional about utilizing words to bring people together as opposed to separate. And like the divisiveness has already existed. So I'm not with we have to be more positive because the country's been divided. You know, like it's been that way. I think this whole conversation about vaccinations, I think the country's it's just showing how great the chasm actually is.
Correct.
It's just fine. I think for me, it's not about not being divisive. It's just about speaking truth. And putting and utilizing words to do that, and utilizing love in order to do that, and recognizing that, you know, since we have the time, when I think about the Black Panther Party, the conversations that we generally have about the Black Panther Party, it's about these beautiful Black men and women, and non-binary folks as well, who are showing up in these beautiful black leather suit and jackets and pants, and they got guns and they're storming the buildings and they're shooting at the pigs. And it's like the most prominent thing that the Black Panther Party did was create the free breakfast program. And feeding poor Black and brown kids in these communities. That was an act of love. It was an act of love, and it was revolutionary. And I think it's easy to think that love is passive when it is not at all. Like Malcolm's love for people is what led him to Mecca. You know, like it's not a either or. You know, and like when I have these conversations with folks, I have to make people recognize like the anger is a catalyst, but we tend to think and look at the anger as like that's what's going to move people. And it's like Huey Newton is dead. You know what I'm saying? Like Malcolm is dead. Martin is dead. Like this is like, you know, Stokely Carmichael changed his name and left the country, you know, and rightfully so. But it's the anger, like it got us to a point.
Yep.
And not saying that the love is going to get us across the threshold. I think it's both. But we can't keep talking about one side of this equation and thinking there's only one way for us to be liberated. And for me, words are part of that process.
Friends, thank you for showing up and for spending some time with Clint and Lisa and Eddie and Chloe and Coleman and Joelle and me this week. To find links for everything mentioned in today's conversation and to keep up with all things Let's Give a Damn, visit letsgiveadamn.com. Please share this episode with a friend or 2 or 10. Please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And please, my friends, show up next week. We have many more incredible conversations coming your way. Chad Snavely, Jess Collins-Harn, and the incredible team at Sound On Studios made this episode. The music is by our friend Propaganda. You can reach out anytime and for any reason at hello@letsgiveadamn.com. I love you all. Be safe. Keep giving a damn. Bye for now.